Hey guys, Yankee here, and today I want to be giving my thoughts on the Unbelievable Gwenpool. This is a 25-issue comic book series with a 0-issue collecting some backup stories from Howard the Duck, which is where she first appeared, and a holiday special that came out probably around issue 13, 14 of this series. So overall, the 5 trades that I have collect 27 comics. And before I talk about what's in here, I have to talk about how Gwenpool, the character, even exists, because it's fascinating to me. So back in 2015, I think, is when Spider-Verse happened, the comic event, not the movie that everybody knows. There was a comic book event called Spider-Verse where a bunch of spider people from different universes come together, right? And one of them became very popular, Spider-Gwen, which is Gwen Stacy as Spider-Man. She has a very striking costume that was very popular and just a generally really great design. And so she became really popular really quickly with a lot of fan art and a lot of cosplay and stuff like that. So Marvel, seeing that this was popular, they did a line of variant covers. I think they did this a couple times actually, where the premise of these variants is, what if Gwen Stacy was this superhero or that superhero? So, what if Gwen Stacy was Thor, and then put that on the cover of an issue of Thor? And so we get to Secret Wars, Jonathan Hickman's Secret Wars in 2015, and there is a Deadpool miniseries going alongside it called Deadpool's Secret Wars. And on issue 2, we just have Gwen Stacy as Deadpool, and it's not exactly the design that gets used here, but it's, what kicks everything off. And the design was popular, people were drawing fan art of it, people were doing cosplays of it, and it was just a cover. And so somebody at Marvel said, hey, let's jump on this and let's make it a real character. And so they called up Christopher Hastings, the writers of this series, and said, hey, look at this picture, make a comic book about it. And so just that whole situation is fascinating. And everything said and done, it shouldn't have been good. Just the idea of, hey, we made this little design of what if this character was X superhero, right? Now I'm turning into a real character. That should have fallen apart really quickly. But I think Christopher Hastings was smart in how that he approached it, and just took the design and the name and then just did something completely different with it. So Gwenpool is not related to Gwen Stacy at all. She's also not related to Deadpool. She is a person from the real world, our world, who got sucked into the Marvel Comics universe. So this is an isekai series. And her name is Gwen, last name Poole, Poole. And she likes comic books, so she knows everything about the Marvel universe. And one thing she knows is that if you're just a background character, you're going to get, blown up by an alien or squished by a fallen building. So once she realizes she's in the comic book world, she goes to a costume place, gets a costume. The woman that's making the costume for her, Ronnie, asks for her name. She writes Gwenpool, and then she becomes Gwenpool. And we just get a pink and white Deadpool costume. And then she's sort of on her way. This is a very meta comic, which I haven't really read a whole lot of those. So this was pretty an early one for me, right? I hadn't read a comic where the person knew they were in a comic and was playing around with comic stuff before. So when I first read this, that really was interesting to me, though it's obviously been done before and probably after. But the way it's approached here is very different from, what other characters do. People will know that they live in a comic book, but this is a comic book fan going into them. And so she has outside knowledge that somebody just in the comic wouldn't necessarily know. So she knows people's secret identities and all kinds of stuff like that. And she uses that to her advantage here. And she also knows that she is the hero of this story, so she can get away with some things that she wouldn't be able to in the real world. So in one of the Howard the Duck backup stories, for example, she's running away, or she's driving away on a motorcycle, and she just like drives off a bridge, knowing that, I'm the protagonist of this story, I'm going to be fine, and then she falls into a truck and is fine. And like right away we set that up in the backup stories, and then right in issue 1 we're sort of sticking with that a bit, where she's really sort of full of herself, like, I'm a main character here, I can do whatever I want, I don't have any consequences, I can't be killed and such, right? And then immediately one of her friends that she has made once she got to this world, Cecil, is obliterated by MODOK, and he's just dead. And so she quickly realizes, like, alright, I am an important character, so I get some leeway and I can survive things that other people can't, but the people around me are kind of expendable. And so the rest of the series is her kind of finding her place within the Marvel Comics world. We see her sort of like fall, like immediately in the first issue. She's trapped as MODOK's like henchman. We see her sort of build herself up, get a few wins in, make a mistake, fall back down, and she's constantly making mistakes or hitting walls and needing to pick herself back up and sort of figure out what she wants to do, what path she's going to take here in this comic book world. And it's just a lot of fun, right? This, these 5 trades here are a very good, like, standalone comic, right? It's got a beginning, a middle, and end. Gwenpool has an arc where, again, she starts as kind of like an anti-hero, falls down to being a henchman, and then she has to, like, really make a decision of what she wants to be in this world. And I think the whole series is just a lot of fun, but also the character of Gwen is changing a lot, and she isn't stagnant. She isn't, from how she's kind of introduced in those Howard the Duck stories where, oh, I'm a main character, nothing can hurt me, to basically that going out the window right away, to where it's like, okay, yeah, you can't really die, but bad things can happen to you. I think it's really well done. I think the character is a lot of fun. I think the story is a lot of fun. I think towards the end, especially, where they get a bit more creative with how Gwen interacts with the comic book world. I think that's really great and makes for some really fun, action and just like panels and stuff. The second to last issue in particular with Batrock, I think, is one of my favorites. It's just really fun. Artwork for most of the series is really great. Gurihiru is one that I really enjoy. They're an artist that I had known about since they did the Avatar The Last Airbender comics at Dark Horse. I never read them, but I looked at them and I'm like, oh, these are cool, I want to read these at some point, and never did. And then eventually, I think this was the first comic by Gurihiru that I read, and I've read a few other ones now, but I like their artwork a lot. Some of the fill-in artists for the issues that they're not there vary. There's some that are pretty good, there's some that are just not very good at all, but overall the artwork is quite good. One criticism of this, and it's just sort of it's something that you can't really be helped. 25 issues, it got canceled, so there was a lot of stuff set up for future story arcs that obviously you're getting canceled, you can't resolve them well, and so at the end of the series, the writer just rushes through all these plots that he had set up and says, alright, here in this one page we're going to wrap this up, we're going to wrap this up, wrap that up, that's it. So this is an entire, this whole series is standalone. You can pick it up, read it, and have no problem with it. There's not really any event tie-ins in this series, so you don't have to worry about the story getting derailed or anything. But yeah, the last bit is kind of quickly trying to wrap things up, which is unfortunate, but something I can forgive. And one other thing I'll mention before I end this video here. It's very much set in, like, was it 2016 to 2018 Marvel Comics. I think this is a pretty good comic for people that don't really know much about Marvel and just want to try something, because one, it has Gwen interacting with, like, a lot of heroes. Two, it's a brand new character, so you don't have to have, like, this whole history that you have to read, or, like, you feel obligated to read. I know some people are kind of like that. I can be like that too, where I don't always want to jump into the middle of a character story. I want to kind of go back to the beginning. And her being a new character makes that really easy. You can just jump into Marvel Comics here. And if you have just a general understanding of Marvel and their characters, you're going to be fine. But it's very much set in 2016 to 2018, where Jane Foster is Thor, which is something a lot of people will probably be familiar with now. It was in a Marvel movie, but there's things like that, where certain characters that you see aren't how you, like, who you would expect, or things like that, right? And you also see a lot of, like, Champions era characters, and by that I mean, like, Miles Morales appears quite a bit, Kamala Khan appears, like, a little bit. Gwenpool very much falls into that category, or, like, that era of character where she's, like, 18, 19 in this comic, so she fits in with, like, teenagers that were being introduced around that time, so, like, Miles Morales and Kamala Khan and other Champions characters. And I think she did, like, a crossover with Champions eventually, but things like that. So you'll see more of those characters than maybe the Marvel characters you're more familiar with. Like, I don't think Peter Parker appears in this comic, maybe at all. I think he might at the end. I don't remember. But I don't think he speaks if he does. You're going to see Miles, right? You're going to see Thor, but it's not going to be the actual Thor people know. It's going to be Jane Foster Thor. So something like that. Like, if you have a general understanding of Marvel, or just, like, a general knowledge, you can probably jump into this fine, but there's might be a few things here and there that are just odd or off. And that's something else I'll touch on real quick about this series before I wrap it up. One thing I liked that doesn't really come into play until the end of the series, and then we never touch on it again because it ends. Gwenpool's knowledge of comics is limited up until when she came in. So by the end of the series, there are things that have changed that she has no knowledge of because she's been here in the world living in it, which is something I thought was really cool. Overall, this is a series I really enjoy. I've read through it a few times now, which usually for me, that's how I decide if something is, I consider something a favorite or not. Like, if I really like something in the moment but never go back to it, I don't know if I can really count it as something that's my favorite. Whereas the things that I go back to, no matter what quality they are, like, if I go back to them a lot, that's obviously something that I consider a favorite. So Unbelievable Gwenpool is probably my favorite comic. It's the one that I've reread the most. I really enjoy this series a lot. And I think more people should read it. Again, it's a very nice standalone series. You can just read from issue 0 to issue 25, have fun, call it a day, and you never have to touch another comic with Gwenpool in it again, because the story has a beginning, a middle, and end, and it's just good. But yeah, that's going to do it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.